You know, sometimes when you find yourself completely lost, pushing your bike up a hill in a conflict zone between two rival cartels in the middle of nowhere in Mexico, with a thunderstorm rolling in and the light running out fast and night approaching, sometimes you have to look at yourself and question your life choices. This could be a bit spicy. Okay, let me rewind a bit. My last video left off back in Zion National Park, where I just finished cycling across Utah at the start of winter. After a short break to see my family in California over Christmas, it was a straightforward ride down through Arizona towards the Mexican border, just south of Tucson. Knowing that I was going to be bikepacking through northern Mexico and having heard quite a few horror stories about the cartels in that part of the country, I'd been gathering information for weeks to try and make an informed plan going forward. Most of the people talking about how dangerous Mexico is have never actually been there, and although I wasn't going to dismiss the horror stories out of hand, I wanted to speak to locals who knew what the reality would actually be like. It seemed like the most dangerous part would be crossing between the states of Sonora and Chihuahua, as warring rival cartels control the two states, and there might be some risk of getting caught up in the middle. I was very lucky to be put in touch with James, who was living just over the border in Mexico, right in the area I'd be passing through.
Hi, this is James.
Hi James, it's Tristan.
Hi, Tristan.
Yeah, really appreciate you taking the time to give me all the information that you wrote down. That is super helpful. I mean, you mentioned that the area, if I were to try and go on the back roads to get across between Sonora and Chihuahua, how risky do you think that would actually be? Like, are they likely to be interested in someone like me coming through?
No. I mean, it's just important anytime you go through there that you understand you're going through like a conflict zone between two cartels. It's not like I'm telling you like, hey, you're going through a war zone, but in some ways, there's like the cartels don't really function off of random violent acts. Like usually it's a big business and they're very, precise about what they do. Usually, except for when they messed up and killed that Mormon family. The cartel in Sonora is like is a little bit more organized. The cartel in Chihuahua is the one who's sometimes like, you don't always know what they're gonna do.
After weighing it up, I decided to go for it, as it seemed like as long as I minded my own business, I should be relatively safe as a foreign tourist. I crossed over into Mexico at the little border town of Agua Prieta and was met by Cesar, a friend of James who had kindly given me a place to crash for a few days. Cesar was an amazing host, taking me out to see a bit of the area and introducing me to my first taste of Mexican cuisine, something I'd been deeply looking forward to for months. So I am at last underway. I'm just leaving the border town of Agua Prieta this morning, and I'm going to be heading south. A massive thank you to Cesar and James, who gave me a place to crash for the last few days and got me settled in. It's always nice when you're crossing into a new country to have a few days to relax before you get started, so that's been great. It's a pretty interesting place here, what with the massive border fence going right across half the town. It's currently the, 28th of January, so it's not long after Trump got into power in the US, and that's obviously having an effect on immigration here. But yeah, anyway, the next few days are going to be very interesting because I've got to cross over the border between the states of Sonora and Chihuahua. I've been assured by quite a few people that they shouldn't be interested in cyclists, as in tourists, because I'm probably more trouble than it's worth. But we're just going to have to play it by ear and see how it goes. The first day was straightforward, riding south on a good paved road down into the Sonoran desert. Aside from the roaring of a fierce headwind, the road was quiet with almost no traffic. The desert was beautiful, and despite a few nagging worries over the security situation, I was happy to be there and enjoying the ride. I'd been told that wild camping might not be the best idea, as the cartels might be watching, so I stopped early at the town of Colonia Morelos, the last major settlement I'd be going through before crossing into Chihuahua. Step 1 was finding some food, and step 2 would be finding the comisario, the guy who I needed to ask for permission to camp somewhere in the town. Gracias.
El comisario.
El comisario, sí.
Mire, si está en la plaza esa, así enfrente, en un changarrito que está ahí, una tiendita, un restaurante, a ver si está ahí el carro. Y si no, se va derechito y la segunda casa es la del comisario.
Okay. After eating one of the best burgers of my life, I found the comisario, who kindly gave me permission to stay in a special guest room they keep available for travellers. So day 1 is good and finished, and I've made it to the first stop, Colonia Morelos. And thanks to the kindness of the people here, I have a place to stay for the night, which is amazing. I always really like coming out to these middle of nowhere backcountry towns because it always feels a little bit like the end of the world. Things are always really ramshackle and there's not a whole lot going on. It's always really quiet. People are really friendly, but it's just, a very cool vibe. So I always like coming to places like this. The really good news is that I've spoken to a whole bunch of people here and it sounds like there's no trouble at the moment. Things are calm and no one is anticipating any problems for me making the crossing into Chihuahua tomorrow. So that is fantastic. It's been about 5 years since the last time I was held up at gunpoint, which was in Egypt. And I'm really hoping I can keep this streak going and that I don't have any issues tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to be the big day with a ton of climbing, crossing over into Chihuahua. So I'm going to get a good night's sleep and then it's going to be a bright early start heading straight up into the mountains. Alright, so I have made it to the turn-off for the start of the dirt road, which is just behind me here. And this, I guess, is where it starts getting interesting. I really hope this works out. I really hope this dirt road is open all the way. I hope it leads across the mountains, and I hope I don't have any issues with the cartels. It's definitely a little bit of a scary moment here, but I figure once you start with this kind of stuff, there's no point getting too worried. It doesn't help. Once you've committed, you might as well just stick with it and hope for the best. So that's what I'm going to do. Time to go. In the end, the route I'd chosen was the most remote one I could find. A dotted line on a map, which seemed to lead over the mountains, across into Chihuahua, and then down to the town of Pancho Villa on the other side. I'd been able to confirm there was some kind of road by looking at the satellite map, but nobody seemed to know anything about it, so it was definitely a bit of a gamble. On the one hand, I wasn't at all sure the route would be possible, but on the other, I figured that meant the cartels were probably less likely to be watching it, so in theory, it should be a relatively safe way through. Nothing was guaranteed, but sometimes you just have to weigh up the risks and go for it. I mean, so far so good. I haven't seen anybody yet. The road is unbelievably beautiful. I really wish I could fire my drone up and do some exploring with that, but drones in places that have been described as conflict zones, generally a bad idea, so I'm not going to try that one. But yeah, amazing place. Absolutely stunning. I'm really enjoying the climb and making good progress. So as I got deeper into the mountains, I saw signs of abandoned ranches, but I never saw any people. The road continued uphill. I was constantly opening and closing gates, and I had no idea if the road I was on was private or whether I was even allowed to be there. I still had doubts as to whether the road would even lead through to where I was going, but towards the end of the afternoon, I heard the sound of dogs barking as I finally came upon an active ranch in the mountains. ¿Cómo estás?
Bien.
Es la ruta por Pancho Villa, ¿verdad? Hola, hola. ¿Esto? Muchas gracias. Está muy tranquilo aquí. No hay mucha gente, supongo, ¿no?
You know.
No. So, I mean, these guys are like the definition of unruffled. Random English guy turns up on a bicycle to their ranch in the absolute middle of nowhere. And you've got to think that's going to be one of the more unusual things that's going to happen to them in general. How often do people really come through here? I think basically never. And yet, completely unfazed. Yeah, no worries, there's your road. Good luck. Let me escort you up the hill on my ATV. I mean, yeah, pretty cool. But yeah, this climb is an absolute monster. Super loose and steep, but seems like it's all good. And seems like this does lead through. So hopefully all will be well. This is a kind of not great situation. I'm at the top, but there is a big storm apparently rolling in, which wasn't forecast. And the road has taken me to a locked gate, a padlocked gate, and I'm not sure I really want to be jumping any padlocked gates up here in this conflict zone on top of a mountain. But I didn't actually see any other turns, so I think I'm going to have to go back, see if I can find any other options. The guy did say this road does get through to Pancho Villa, and he did mention another gate, but he said it would be unlocked, and this one isn't. So I don't know. I'm off the map here. My map is completely wrong, and I have no idea where the road goes. So, and it's going to be getting dark in the next couple of hours, so this is not exactly ideal. I need to figure this out quickly. My situation was not looking good. I was off the map, and the road I was supposed to be on had disappeared. I went back down, then up again, and then back down again, before finally settling on bushwhacking up the hill in the spot where my map said a road was supposed to exist. I wasted nearly an hour searching the hillsides, before finally, to my immense relief, I came across the faint remnants of a track going steeply uphill, leading over the final ridge to the border with Chihuahua. Thank God. Just come up this rise here after pushing my bike up this overgrown, broken bit of whatever it was, and got up to the top, and it definitely does look like this is a road. So hopefully I'm back on track, and this is going to lead the rest of the way to Pancho Villa, but it's still another 30 kilometers. A lot could happen. There's a storm that's starting to hit just ahead, but anyway, at least I am back on track, I think. It's definitely starting to get a little bit concerned there, so hopefully it's all going to work out. Thankfully, it did work out. I rolled down into Chihuahua, following abandoned farm tracks down the valley heading east. The descent was glorious. I outrun the storm, and with the light fading, I put up my tent and settled in for the night. I finished off the crossing the next morning, and after jumping a couple of barbed wire fences, I emerged from the mountains into a wide open plain dotted with ranches and cattle. After a few hours of riding, I finally made it to Pancho Villa, my first town in Chihuahua. With the crossing done, I could relax, as the riskiest section was behind me and all of Mexico lay ahead. I continued on into the afternoon, heading southeast towards the next range of mountains, taking the backroads. The scenery was gorgeous. The traffic was close to zero. I felt an enormous sense of appreciation that I'd decided to come this way, and that I'd made it safely through into Chihuahua. So I've really lucked out here. I stopped at this little ranch to ask for water and to see if there was anywhere in town that I could camp. And it turns out that this is sort of a mission for people suffering from mostly drug rehabilitation to work here on the ranch. And the commissario asked me a few questions, and then he said if I wanted to, I could stay here in the dormitorio with some of the other guys. So I have a bed, which is amazing because nights are dropping below freezing at the moment here in the mountains, so it's nice not to have to pack up a frozen tent in the morning. And yeah, I had some really good food. The guys were super, super kind in cooking me a really great meal, and they've just been incredibly welcoming, and lots of questions about where I'm from and what I'm doing, as expected. But yeah, just so kind. Yeah, very, very touching how generous these guys have been, and just how warm and welcoming to this complete stranger turning up in the middle of nowhere on a bicycle for some reason. But yeah, really, really, really happy that I'm here. Gracias. Ciao. Everyone talks about how nice Mexican people are, and I mean, yeah, what can I say? It's really humbling. People just really take care of you out here. Everybody waves. Everyone is happy to help you out. It's it's such a welcoming place. And yeah, very humbling. I spent the next day riding through the mountains to reach Nuevo Casas Grandes, my first bigger town since crossing into Mexico. From there, I'd be heading south towards the Copper Canyon, where I would eventually meet the cartels face to face, but I'll save that story for next time. It's been a really interesting experience editing this video and revisiting those first few days in the country, as I've now been in Mexico for several months, and I have a much better grasp of the security situation and how things are with the cartels. Honestly, looking back, I don't think I was actually ever in much danger with the narcos, as they really aren't interested in causing trouble for tourists. There's a lot of sensationalism around how dangerous Mexico really is. I'd never claim to be an expert, and there's no question that bad things definitely do happen, but I will say that I'm so glad I wasn't put off by the horror stories, and that I was able to find out the truth for myself. Don't believe everything you hear, because in more than 4 months of cycling across Mexico, I never once felt unsafe. The people have been universally incredible, and Mexico has ended up being one of my all-time favorite countries in the world.